Technology Works is David Albrich, who will be speaking for 5 minutes. David represents a platform for eine menschliche Asylpolitik from Austria and is an organiser of anti-fascist activity in Austria, including key demonstrations against Hofer's FPO around both sets of recent elections. And no country is more important to hear from today than Austria. David.
You can see a fantastic picture of me. Just a quick test. Can you all hear me?
Yes!
Fantastic. Let me begin by saying one important thing on anti-Semitism. In yesterday's Financial Times newspaper, the likely new Austrian Chancellor blames refugees and migrants for bringing racism to Austria. This is absolutely ridiculous. He says, quote, "It is a new form of anti-Semitism imported by some. There are people who reject our way of living, who are against equality between men and women." This is the guy who is going into a government with anti-Semites and the most disgusting sexist of all. This is the guy whose own Tory youth organization just a few months ago caused a massive anti-Semitic scandal at the law faculty at the University of Vienna by posting anti-Semitic and Islamophobic contents in messenger groups. The leadership of the Freedom Party consists of members of so-called Burschenschaften, very right-wing student corporations that were co-responsible for organizing the Holocaust and planned mass murder of millions of Jews. This is the party that should be in the next government with Kurds. When the likely new Tory chancellor is blaming refugees and migrants for anti-Semitism and at the same time is forming a coalition government with the successors of the Nazi regime, he is dancing on the graves of the victims of the Holocaust, and we should say never again. Where Labour has given way to racism, they lost. In one federalist state in Austria where Labour strongly campaigned against refugees and where they even went into a federal government with the fascists, they lost more than 4 percentage points. And on the other hand, in Red Vienna, where Labour cautiously campaigned against the coalition with the fascists, they won 3 percentage points. The leader of the Labour Party, and he is quite the opposite of someone like Jeremy Corbyn, he campaigned that it was he who sent the military to the borders against migrants and refugees. When talking about migration, he demands armored protection vests for policemen as if refugees are terrorists. It was he who introduced the ban of the burqa, with the results of rising attacks on Muslims, especially Muslim women. A right-wing split of the Green Party, who stood for the election, with the self-acclaimed goal of winning back voters from the fascists by portraying Islamists as the most dangerous threat in Austria, they of course didn't get any voters back from the fascists. The fascists and the Tories rose by 13 percentage points in the elections. Racism and professional Islamophobia, as Asad Ali called it in the previous session, it made the right and employers stronger, and it weakened and unsettled the working class. The leaders of Labour and the left have to stop giving way to racism. One special point I want to make here. There's no middle ground on racism. You cannot say, of course I'm no racist, but you are either racist or you are an anti-racist. And the leader of the Labour Party says not every Muslim is dangerous, but he wants to smash radicalization under Muslims and says political Islam, he wants to smash it with a, quote, iron fist. One Austrian public opinion researcher told the Washington Post newspaper this week that people, they do not really differentiate between Muslims and Islamic extremists. Nearly every Muslim seems to be dangerous. Let's be clear, the problem is not political Islam. The problem is that racism has penetrated deeply into all established parties, and we have proposed this as strong as we can. There is no majority, no mandate for racism in Austria. Yes, Tories and fascists have both together 57%. But over 1 million people, mostly foreigners, who are not allowed to vote. In Vienna, 1 in 4 persons were not allowed to vote. In one migrant district in Vienna, it was every second person who was not allowed to vote. Racism is used against the people who are not even allowed to vote. Also, there are over 1 million people who didn't vote. None of the parties appeal to them, or they think they can change anything. If you take both these massive numbers into account, the Tories and the Fascist Freedom Party get together just 38%. This is not the majority. This is pretty weak. Since 2015, hundreds of thousands were directly active in helping refugees. In the last presidential elections, 1.6 million people gave their vote to the counter-candidate in order to stop the fascist becoming the president. These numbers show that there is a massive base for building the anti-racist and anti-fascist movement. One final point. One thing, how we're going to do this, it's on an international basis. We are following your fantastic anti-racist work in Britain very closely, and it's fantastic what you are doing. We're very proud that in 2 years in a row we took part on the International Day Against Racism in March. Thousands were marching for refugees and Muslims. And we hope that on the 17th of March the protests will be as massive as possible, from Britain to Germany, Austria, Greece and elsewhere. We have to build the resistance now. The anti-racists, the workers are united, and together we will never be defeated.